Oh, are we really? Are we really still having this discussion? What's up, guys? I'm Hunter here, and here we are to do a breakdown / live reaction and review to Six's Stop Debating Yuta versus Hakari. Y'all, it's not even a video title. It's an order. It's a demand. It's just straight. You can tell he's mad. Like straight up opening it up with a declarative statement. That's crazy. But whoo, golly gee willikers, fellas. Hakari versus Yuta. It's a debate that I thought Logan kind of died. I'll be honest. I thought it kind of died, especially since Hakari just hasn't really, I don't want to say hasn't really done anything, but hasn't really done anything, and Yuta's just kept getting more and more and more and more and more feats on a character that is infinitely superior to the character that Hakari is currently fighting post-time skip. So personally, I had thought the debate was kind of silenced, but apparently it's still prominent enough that Six felt like they needed to make a video declaring it. So I'm interested. Let's take a look in a book. No reading rainbow type B. But editing me. Are you ready? 3, 2, 1, go. What's up, guys? That guy with a pencil here. Fun fact, I do mean to have it on me and keep it on me at all times. And another fun fact, see, I yap so much I fumbled the immediate opening statement. I like to yap like a lot. It's like a lot. Like a lot. And if you want to see this video without my incessant yapping, the link to the original video will be in the description down below, along with a link to Six's channel. They're a fantastic content creator. They just recently hit 103K. And they make fantastic content. They're primarily a Naruto YouTuber, but they've been branching out to JJK. I'm pretty sure I saw them cover another series too. It was Naruto, it was JJK, and there was like one other series I saw them cover. But I don't remember which one it was at this time, but go check them out. The link will be in the description down below. If you somehow found me, but you haven't found Six, go find Six. They're a fantastic content creator. But real quick, for my thoughts on Yuta versus Hakari, they haven't changed. Like, I feel like I've covered this matchup before, either in reaction videos or like independently in my own video. And while notably I'm much more of a Maki meat muncher, and thus I talk about how Maki slams Hakari, it's not any different for Yuta. And I know the statements on screen, I see literally in the chapter section of the video, it says the dreaded statement. And I see it on screen. We're short-handed, so we gotta rope in whoever we can. Is he tough? Well, he's moody, but when he gets worked up, he's stronger than I am. That's not true. Now, here's the thing. Hakari fans, I'll grant you this statement. It makes sense within the logic of the universe. I'll be completely real. Because remember, we know how Yuta's reinforcement works. The man has paltry physical strength. He admits this himself numerous times. Even Yuji notes that the guy doesn't look like the power type. Yuta brings it up because he's not. He just has buku amounts of cursed energy. Thusly, he gets gains. However, Hakari also gets access to infinite amounts of cursed energy when he's in Jackpot, which I assume is what Yuta meant when he said Hakari when he gets worked up. So, running some simple mathematics here, Hakari, who is a big, buff, manly man with rippling muscle all over his body and is like 6'4". I have no idea how tall Hakari really is, but still, he's a muscle-bound man versus Yuta spindly arm Sakotsu. Yeah, if you give one infinite cursed energy and give one boundless cursed energy, and we know Yuta's technically isn't even really boundless, and Hakari's is legitimately infinite, or at least infinitely refilled. No, it has to. It's not infinite literally, but it's infinite literally, if you know what I'm talking about. Then yeah, Hakari is going to be physically stronger than Yuta. That doesn't mean he wins the fight. Like, at all. Because Yuta doesn't fight alone. He fights with Rika. And Rika's manhandling Hakari. Because Hakari doesn't have any feats to prove otherwise. And this is not including the fact that Yuta could prevent Hakari from even getting domain off in like 15 different ways. Whether it be paralyzing him while he's in base, whether it be restraining him with Rika, whether it be arguably at this point speed blitzing base Hakari, if we're being honest with how crazy some of Yuta's speed feats are now. Whether it be insta-domain trapping Hakari and then forcing Hakari into a domain clash, and then both of them kind of just sit there forever because they're not going to end up clashing, and by the time Hakari hits the jackpot, he's going to be trapped in Yuta's domain, which will get a sure hit effect back, which could be whatever Yuta wants. Like, there are so many different ways that Yuta, like, neck slams. And by neck slam, I mean legit picks up Hakari by his neck using Rika and slams him. It's not funny. It's actually kind of scary. So, sure, this statement can be true and he can still lose. We literally see a character definitively, in every way, shape, and form, stronger than Yuta, lose to Yuta. Y'all remember Ryu Ishigori? The guy with the highest curse energy output in all of history? Literally higher than Ryomen Sukuna, higher than Yuta Okotsu, higher than Hakari Kenji, higher than Kashima Hajime, all because, well, at least for Ryomen Sukuna, he's included in history, and highest curse energy output recorded ever in the flashback was mentioned by Kenjaku, Bada Bing Bada Boom, in Date Province. You've heard it before. And also, highest output in the Culling games. Sukuna was never a player in the Culling games. Technically, it was always only Yuji. But still, regardless, Ryu was stronger than Yuta. The narrator says this. It's reaffirmed later by Sukuna that Ryu is stronger than both a post-time skip Yuta and a post-time skip Yuji. Bulkier. And likely has higher output. He still lost, and he would lose every other time still. Even as the mightiest Ryu rider this side of the Mississippi, I will readily admit that. Hakari is less diverse than Ryu. He's just baby immortal. Go for his head. Hold him instead. Like, there's so many different ways. But let me stop yapping. Y'all know what I think. Let's see what Six has to say about this topic.
Worked up, he's stronger than I am. I really do hate this statement. If not for this statement, I guarantee you the debate between these two would not exist. But nonetheless, it does exist. So, Hakari versus Yuta. Who would win if the two of them fought? I don't want to downplay Hakari here. That's 100% not my intention. And I think for a lot of reasons that Hakari going up against Yuta is sort of a bad matchup. But Yuta is like that for a ton of people. His domain is particularly powerful considering the giant arsenal it grants him, even aside from his sure hit. And obviously every fight with Yuta is going to be a 2-on-1 because he always has Rika around. Let's start with the statement that I mentioned earlier. I want to sort of pick this apart because there's context that gets ignored every single time this statement is mentioned. For one, I think it's extremely fair to take into account that Yuta is not one of Hakari's opponents. In the context the statement is made in, they're talking about gathering strong allies in order to help in the Culling games because they're short-handed. Yuji asked if Hakari is tough, and that was Yuta's response, essentially assuring Yuji that they'd be gaining a strong ally with Hakari. Now, to quickly address a translation error, the actual wording here is when he's on a roll, he's stronger than me. This obviously is different from Hakari just being worked up and puts an entire new context on the statement. Yuta is saying if Hakari hits multiple jackpots, he's stronger than him. This is not only more believable, but when you consider the time limits of both characters' super abilities, this sort of makes sense. Yuta can fully manifest Rika and maintain a connection through his ring for 5 minutes, while if Hakari gets multiple jackpots, even 2 jackpots, which for the record I do not think is being on a roll, back to back, that grants Hakari 8 minutes and 22 seconds of immortality. Also, like I said, I'm not trying to downplay Hakari here. A guy as strong as Hakari being immortal for 8 minutes or longer is a genuine threat, and it makes...
He brings up a fantastic point. When I say Hakari loses to every single one of the other heavy hitters, from Maki to Yuta to Yuji, I'm not downplaying Hakari. Gege is. Tell me why Hakari has no bag. We always talk about every other character in the series being some variation of a punch and kick merchant. Yuji's a punch and kick merchant. Toji's a punch and kick merchant. Maki's a punch and kick merchant. Gojo's a punch and kick merchant. Like we've thrown the allegations at basically everyone. We've thrown the bag at them. The bag is the allegations of being a punch and kick merchant. Everyone has that. There is no greater punch and kick merchant, punch kick regen merchant in the entire series than Hakari Kenji. Now especially, before you could argue is him and Yuji Tadori dapping each other up as the greatest punch and kick merchants this side of the Mississippi. Before we knew Yuji had blood manipulation, before we got Shrine, before we got a domain of his own, before all that, of course, Yuji was a punch and kick merchant. It was his whole thing. It's what we love the man for. Mr. Left, wait, that's on my right, left, right, good night type beat. But Hakari Kenji is literally a punch and kick merchant. That's all he has in his bag, at least when in Jackpot. Because don't get me wrong, every single Hakari fan, every single one I've ever talked to always brings up, well, he's got the balls indoors. Why didn't he use them against Kashima? Why didn't he use them against Kashima? Where were the indicators then? We haven't seen much of it, but we saw a decent chunk of Hakari versus Ume. Where were the balls indoors there? Oh, is it because they aren't useful in Jackpot? Because they probably don't do anything? The only person he ever whipped them out against was Yuji Itadori, a character he was stronger than at the time? Maybe because they just don't scale. Like, I'm telling you, y'all. if Hakari had even the slightest bit of a bag, I'm not even talking about like a deep bag, like don't get me wrong, I'm not expecting him to become Yuta. One of Yuta's whole things is his bag. I'm not expecting him to become Maki. Maki doesn't have very deep of a bag. She's not Toji. She doesn't have Inverted Spear of Heaven, the Chain of 1,000 Miles, Soul Split Katana. She just has Soul Split Katana, Precog, and Air Hopping plus a Dream. But even still, that's a deep enough bag where she doesn't have to just be a punch and kick merchant. She can Duraneg soul damage you. You don't need a deep bag, you just need something of a bag. Yuji, he's starting to get a deep bag. He's got the soul punches. He's got the dismantles. He's working on cleave. He's working on blood manipulation. He's starting to get into a bag. Hakari has no bag. So if you were to just give Hakari one thing, all I'm saying is one thing. I'm telling you, this is the one way you buff Hakari and open him up to way more debates. Let him blast his cursed energy. I'm not saying you have to give him any high output. I'm not saying you have to give him like literally an infinite Kamehameha, kind of, sort of. You don't have to make him stronger than Ryu Ishiguro. You don't even have to make him stronger than Yuta. Just give him the ability to do something ranged with that infinite cursed energy, and he's cooking. He's cooking. You know how many matchups that saves for him? Because one of the biggest things he sucks at, he has no range. He's booty meat. And against Yuta in particular, the character with... Can I even say arguably? No, the character with the deepest bag in the series. At this point, Yuta Kotsu has undeniably the deepest bag in the series. Deeper than Satoru Gojo. Deeper than Meguna. Deeper than... Who else is really complete? Yuji? Like, come on. Yuta from Sky Manipulation to Cleave to... Arguably Dismantle, probably if he felt like wielding it. Curse Speech. Like... Well, he didn't use the Limitless when he in his own body, but still, the Future Sight. He has such a deep bag. The Hana's technique, Jacob's Ladder, such a deep bag. Against Hakari Kenji, what is he meant to do? And he realized the crazy thing. Realized the absolutely buku bonkers, insane next level thing. Now that he has Jacob's Ladder, he can literally immediately turn off Hakari's immortality. Y'all realize that, right? He flies into the sky on Sky Manipulation type beat. Rika's boxing Hakari. Mink, 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 mink. Rika disappears. Hakari's like, what? Where'd she go? He looks up into the sky. Oh, sweet mother mercy. Is that heavenly light? Boom. Gets hit. His technique gets shut off. And then Rika reappears and boom. Knocks out base Hakari. Simple as that. And that wasn't a win con you'd have needed before. So many different ways. That's the thing. And notably, I'm a big fan of, hey, if you got one win con and it's an easy win con, you can do it. It's why, to this day, I think Maki's still a monster. Toji's still a monster. Because Speed Blitz plus Duraneg is crazy. Speed Blitz plus Duraneg plus Soul Damage is one of the best combos in the entire verse. It is simple and clean, no Kingdom Hearts. Hakari does not have that. His bag is... This is how deep Hakari's bag is. That's it. That's how deep his bag is. You tell me you think he stands a chance against who? Yuta Bagotsu? The guy whose bag is like... I don't even have a bag big enough to show how big Yuta's bag is. I would have to go get like a whole heavy-duty garbage bag to show how deep Yuta's bag is. So yeah, I'm sorry, y'all. It's just not... It's not possible. He can still be stronger. We can even still be faster. It does not matter. Because you know what the big thing is? We know Yuta Okotsu, even if you're stronger than him, he'll still eat your hits. With what little AP feats Hakari has shown against Kashimo, against Urume, against even Charles, there's no proof that he can damage Yuta Okotsu at all. He's not hitting harder than Ryu. And I'll once again, as the mightiest Ryu rider this side of the Mississippi, as a Ryu Day -5, not even a Ryu Day 1. I've been there since before he was even conceptualized on my Street Fighter type beat. Let me tell you this verbatim. Ryu beats Yuta physically when they're fighting, but he doesn't really damage Yuta. He knocks him around. It's to a point where Yuta even mentions, if I let my guard down, I could take damage. Ryu's stronger than Hakari in terms of output. No matter what. There's no way you can argue with Hakari as a player in the Culling games when the Ryu statement is made. So, thusly, Ryu's output, which correlates to his punches, and an attack output, Ryu can't really damage Yuta with just regular punches. He beats him up, he knocks him around, but he doesn't really damage him. It takes Granite Blast. Yeah, Hakari doesn't have that. So he's literally incapable of damaging a Yuta who's on guard. Jackpot Hakari could beat Yuta up for like 12 rounds straight and it wouldn't do any significant damage. Look what happened with Kashimo. Look what's happening with Urume. He literally is a certified licensed pillow puncher with no bag. I'm sorry, Hakari fans. I just gotta be honest with you. Let me hop back in the
sense why Yuta would say someone like that is stronger than him. For all intents and purposes, Hakari and Yuta should be around a similar level of power. with Yuta more than likely being the stronger of the two. This is implied through a number of statements, like Kenjaku calling Hakari, Yuta, and Maki the heavy hitter squad, obviously the Yuta statement I just mentioned about Hakari, and when Gojo says that he only wanted Hakari or Yuta to jump into the fight if he got weakened to around their level. So here you have Hakari, who is essentially a Yuta level combatant, obviously minus Rika and Yuta's other abilities. Think of him like an immortal Yuta that can only punch and kick. I'm pretty much done picking apart the statement for now. It'll likely come up later in the video, but for now, let's talk about the difference in power between these two and where it matters the most. As I mentioned in the last...
So he doesn't bring it up. Once again, since he mentioned he's going to come up later, I'm just going to keep reminding you. Hakari can be stronger. He can be faster. That doesn't mean he'll win. It sounds so stupid. Trust me, I get it. It sounds dumb. But remember this in your domers. Your character can be faster and be stronger than a character, but if they can't put the character down, womp womp, it don't matter. But let me
section, Yuta and Hakari are around the same level of power. With that being the case, RCT is obviously necessary in a fight like this, and Hakari takes that category 100% of the time. If he's in jackpot mode, not only is Hakari unkillable for 4 minutes and 11 seconds because of his overpowered reverse curse technique, the conventional ways to kill someone who uses reverse curse technique don't apply to him since he can heal as he breaks. Kashimo tried exploding Hakari's head, to which Hakari just ejected the cursed energy out of his nose and eyes, and when being poisoned, Hakari just healed that away as well. It's also stated by Orame that Hakari's healing speed with RCT surpasses both Gojo's and Sukuna's, so it's pretty hard to argue for Yuta being better in this category.
RCT in particular, yes, it obviously goes to Hakari. Yuta's RCT is nowhere near the levels of Hakari's when he's in jackpot. But one big thing, destroying Hakari's head will work. I'm almost like, if I had money, I'd put it on it. Mainly because the issue with Kashimo's technique, with using the lightning bolt, is that it wasn't like the first one that he landed on Hakari. When the first hit of Kashimo's lightning bolt landed on Hakari, it burst his arm off. Like, it was an instant hit, boom. And then the boom was big enough that it immediately destroyed his arm. For some reason, when the bolt hit Hakari, it didn't have a detonating effect. It slipped into his head, then seemed to try and burst outwards at a slower rate. If you were to knock Hakari's head off, he dies. If you were to do what Yuta did to Kenjaku, and just straight take that, he dies. I'm confident. The only reason it didn't work is because the lightning bolt randomly changed its properties so Hakari could move. I'm just saying, y'all. I'm just saying. And once again, we haven't seen Ume go for the head and Hakari heal through that. Why? Because slaughtering or absolutely atomizing Hakari's head quick enough or removing it quick enough will work. I'm confident in saying that.
At least in the ways that matter to a fight. Yuta can obviously heal other people with his RCT and even shown the ability to remove poisons back when he healed Naoya, who had been infected with Choso's blood. But the most notable thing against Hakari that Yuta has is the ability to actually use RCT. Hakari can only use it while he's in jackpot mode, but Yuta can use it whenever he wants, and with his borderline limitless pool of cursed energy, he's going to be hard to put down outside of just cutting him in half like Sukuna did or taking his head off, so the win cons for the two of them are actually pretty similar. A domain clash between Hakari and Yuta can go a number of ways, but it's clear that Hakari is the one more in need of his domain for this fight than Yuta is. Yuta can fight with Rika no matter what, so Hakari is getting virtually jumped all the time. He's going to need to have jackpot in order to fight here. No one realistically thinks Hakari could beat Yuta in base, so I'm going to grant him starting in jackpot, but every 4 minutes and 11 seconds, Hakari is obviously going to need to do his domain again, get lucky, and re-enter the jackpot mode. The domain battle, however, even though I think it is pretty interesting, is not really close at all. Yuta has way too many ways to prevent this from going in Hakari's favor. I do want to note that according to Lightning's translations, both Viz and TCB leave out a piece of information about Hakari's Surehead, saying that it's particularly strong in a domain clash. This doesn't really matter though, as Hakari's Surehead being stronger in a domain clash works out in the favor of the other person fighting him. If you still make Hakari Surehead, then you won't get the necessary information dump to play the gambling game, and you won't know what's happening. The way to win a clash of domains, according to Gojo, is refinement of a barrier or just more cursed energy. But that's just within the context of clashing domains only. We saw Gojo beat out Sukuna's domain by simply causing Sukuna so much physical harm that the domain collapsed as a result, something that Hakari should be vulnerable to as well, albeit not to the same extent as Sukuna, since Hakari can do pseudo spins in his domain to effectively reset the damage that has been done to him. So he's not as vulnerable to this as Sukuna, but if all the damage is done in one shot, then it won't matter anyway. And that brings us to Yuta. When inside of his domain, Hakari is never in jackpot mode, so any damage Yuta might do is simply permanent unless a jackpot does occur. While clashing domains, it's shown very well in the Gojo and Sukuna fight that the environment of both domains is shown, so imagine a casino that's full of a bunch of swords. For Yuta, aside from having access to all these random curse techniques, including Rika, he can use copied curse techniques without having Rika being fully manifested. This means Hakari can be hit with a simple don't move while inside his domain and have his head cut off. He'd be unable to do renewal or continuation because there's no activating anything after this happens. It's shown that even Sukuna falls prey to this when given the command and can only sit there and wait for the enemy to attack since he is frozen. Yuta has a plethora of moves that can probably just one-shot base Hakari.
And here's the thing, right? That's if Yuta decides to domain clash. Another way Yuta could very easily defeat Hakari, just like that, is let Rika wait outside. Yuta doesn't have to engage in a domain clash with Hakari. Simply tell Rika to float back. Yuta throws hands with base Hakari. Hakari is forced to go into jackpot. Or since he's starting it, he's being generous to Hakari, giving starting jackpot Hakari. Hakari beats up Yuta a little bit. The battlefield goes away, or they get away from Rika. 4 minutes, 11 seconds are up. Hakari goes to loop jackpot. They get trapped in the domain. Rika floats on over. One taps the domain. Now, Hakari's in curse technique burnout, in base, against now a possibly fully manifested Rika and a Yuta who could then cast domain. And Hakari has yet to show any domain counters. Other than his own domain, naturally. So then it's base Hakari getting jumped by fully manifested Rika and domain Yuta. Who do you think wins? Who? Tell me. So yeah. Once again, that's the thing. There's so many... And here's the thing, I'm waiting to see what he says that Hakari win con is, because it can't just be punching and kicking. Because he covered the RCT, he's covering the domain clash right now. But like AP wise, I'm sorry Hakari fans, especially now with what Yuta's eaten against Sukuna, there's nothing you can argue that Hakari can do to Yuta that will actually damage him. Yuta's just that stupidly bulky. It's why I say even like as a person who's been argued all the time in my own comment section, and even by some people I know as a Yuta anti, I will readily say this: a solid 90% of the verse can't even damage the man. Heck, I'd say a solid 95% of the verse can't even damage him. Not conventionally, at least not I think, not in any way, shape, or form that I could recognize off the top of my domer. Like I'm not thinking of anything that can really conventionally damage him. The only things we've seen actively damage Yuta are Duraneg, slashes from Sukuna, the strongest sorcerer in the series, Gojo punches, and Granite Blast, and Duraneg sky manipulation. The man's insanely bulky, and unfortunately, like I mentioned before, Hakari has no back. So... He's got. I legit cannot think of a win con for Hakari. And now, especially after he's performed so poorly in the Urume fight from what we've seen, at least in terms of damage, there's not a win con in sight. So I'm interested to see what he says.
A love beam from Rika is only slightly less powerful than a granite blast from Ryu. Yuta has copied Sukuna's cleave by this point, and Yuta's cleave is even able to damage Sukuna himself, so there'd be no problem at all to cut Hakari's head off whatsoever, or whatever body part Yuta chose to cut off. And then Icebreaker was able to draw blood from Ryu when he was hit in the stomach. This is on top of having Rika there with him to just simply pummel Hakari if need be. I don't imagine Drew Shikigami or Charles Precognition is playing much of a role in this fight, but Yuta also has them to either land more damage on Hakari or simply be able to tell his next move. Even if Yuta doesn't outright kill Hakari, which I think is borderline impossible given all he has to work with, you can't deny he dealt the sufficient damage to collapse someone's domain and simply win, since Hakari has no way to fight without it. Even assuming Hakari has quick recovery on his curse technique burnout, Yuta could hit him with Jacob's ladder and prevent him from using his curse technique at all, thereby preventing Hakari from using his domain expansion. This is all fine and good, but this is assuming Yuta would even use his domain on Hakari in the first place. Given his statement to Yuji and Megumi about how if Hakari gets on a roll, he's stronger than he is, it implies Yuta already knows how Hakari's domain and immortality work. If that's to be the case, which I think the implication is pretty clear, then Yuta might just not expand his domain and wait it out. Let Hakari enter Jackpot and just expand his domain afterwards. I think the fight would be a little bit harder for him inside the domain if Hakari is fighting in Jackpot, because there is good reason to believe that Hakari's Jackpot could counter a number of Yuta's abilities. Let's start with Cursed Speech. Since Cursed Speech is countered by covering your ears with cursed energy, Hakari, whose whole body is flooded with so much cursed energy it turns into positive energy to heal him, would always have his ears covered and prevent it from reaching his brain. And we do know Hakari's brain is protected as well, since Kashimo tried to explode Hakari's brain and commented on how he could heal his damaged brain while ejecting the cursed energy from his nose. Jacob's ladder wouldn't work to stop Hakari's Jackpot because while he's in Jackpot, his curse technique is already burnt out and simply recovers during the Jackpot round.
I will admit, I forgot about that fact card. During the round, his cursed energy expended, curse technique replenished. Yeah. Yeah. I didn't think about it that way. Yeah, okay. So yeah, there you go. There that removes the Jacob's ladder. I thought regardless, as long as he did Jacob's ladder, because yeah, I guess technically curse technique isn't active, he's in burnout. So it's just an after. Someone tried to explain that to me too. It's an after effect of his curse technique. That's weird though. That's so weird. That makes sense. But literally, at the same time, since he's in burnout and he doesn't have any domain counters, Yuta could just keep Jacob's ladder on. Like if he does with success and like is chilling in the domain with Jackpot Hakari and just like hitting him with swords over and over again, he could just make the sure hit Jacob's ladder. So then by the time Hakari's 4 minutes 11 seconds run out, and since Yuta's domain doesn't have a time limit like his manifestation of Rika does, the second Hakari is out of Jackpot, the sure hit effect of Jacob's ladder is going to kick in and he won't be able to loop it. So Jacob's ladder is still a win con, but not as immediate of a win con as I thought.
Meaning while Jackpot is a result or effect of Hakari's curse technique, it's not required to keep the immortality active. Drew Shikigami won't be that useful, just like they weren't last time I talked about them, and Shrine could be useful, but I'm hesitant to say it since while Yuta's Shrine is strong, I'd have a hard time proving it could just one-shot Hakari through his enhanced durability and immortality, and Thin Icebreaker follows a similar line of reasoning. I actually think Precognition would be a big help in a fight against this enhanced Hakari, far more useful than the last scenario I talked about. Since Hakari has already dealt with this ability before, we all know how he would counter it, but that was on a much weaker person than Yuta. His counter was simply moving out of Charles' line of sight, that way he couldn't predict what Hakari was doing. The main reason this wouldn't work on Yuta is because he shares vision with Rika, meaning if Hakari left his line of sight, he could still see where he is from Rika's point of view. Obviously granted that him and Rika aren't looking the same way for some weird reason, which most of the time they aren't. Yuta also has two surefire ways to pretty easily win this in this specific scenario that I cooked up. We know that Yuta is able to imbue whatever curse technique he copies into his domain. Putting Shrine in his barrier would effectively turn his domain into Malevolent Shrine, where Hakari is constantly getting slashed, and even though he'd be healing when his immortality is over after 4 minutes and 11 seconds, he'll be vulnerable before expanding his domain again. Hakari was shown to be susceptible to attacks within this extremely brief period of time, like when Kashimo tore the side of his torso out as his round ended. Of course, he could still expand his domain, but Hakari's base durability feats are pretty trash. With Shrine slashing all over his body, he might lose a finger or a hand or a whole arm before he's able to make the necessary signs to even expand.
He's losing his life. If that man gets tickled by Shrine, I'm talking about his toes get jiggled a little bit, his life is done. Base Hakari's not eating Shrine. If I hear a single Hakari fan in the comments, I know one of them's going to be down there. I know there's one Hakari fan who's been watching this video and is going to be like, yeah, I can't wait to destroy Pencil Man's entire argument. If you try to make the argument that base Hakari can eat cleave, a sure hit cleave, when he can't even RCT basically, you lost your good mind. But let's see.
But a better win con than even that is Yuta having Jacob's ladder on Hakari. Sort of like what I said before, this would prevent him from using his domain again after his immortality mode is over, and also do damage to him at the same time by burning him. We saw that Jacob's ladder works even on non-reincarnated sorcerers when it burns Yuji in the latest chapter, which is 264 at the time of recording this, and Sukuna says it would do the same thing to Todo. These are all decently complicated methods. A far more simple one is Yuta cutting Hakari's arm off as the round ends, and since Hakari doesn't know RCT naturally, he'd just be cooked and armless without a way to expand his domain and therefore just lose. But could Hakari take down Yuta if Yuta isn't granted his domain expansion? How would Hakari fare if Yuta's domain just wasn't in the picture? The answer is not all that differently. While Hakari doesn't have any advanced sure hit attacks to worry about, Yuta can still form a connection with Rika, and his upgraded or enhanced state just so happens to last longer than Hakari's. Hakari's jackpot lasts for 4 minutes and 11 seconds, while Yuta can maintain a connection with Rika for 5 minutes at a time. In this time, Hakari, just like inside the domain, is going to have to deal with both Yuta and fully manifested Rika jumping him, and while he won't be taking any damage since he's immortal, they'll still be able to pummel him. Just look at what they did to Oro. It makes it almost impossible to argue Yuta couldn't last out these 4 minutes and go for any of the 3 win cons I mentioned earlier, even without his domain being present. Shrine, Jacob's ladder, and removing Hakari's arm or hand are still very valid win conditions. Hakari might be able to save himself if he thinks with the same manga brain that he used against Kashimo, or at least make things easier on himself. Continuing with the idea that Yuta's domain is unavailable to him, if Hakari can knock Rika away from Yuta, then he could get Yuta inside of his domain and change the coordinates of the barrier to keep Rika away while he fights Yuta inside and tries to hit another jackpot. This could also just be as bad for Hakari as it is good, however, since when Rika was knocked away from Yuta in Sendai Colony, she went crazy and awakened again, gaining her eye. If she stays outside, that also leaves her free to attack Hakari's barrier, and as we all know, domain barriers are weak against attacks from the outside, and if his domain collapses before he gets a jackpot, he's put in a similar situation to earlier, where he's just sort of cooked. Yuta and Gojo's body is just overkill for this matchup. Hakari has 0 ways to bypass infinity, and Yuta's domain in this body rivals Sukuna's in refinement, meaning he's going to get fried by Unlimited Void if he tries to clash with it. This fight used to be really close when Hakari was first introduced, but with him getting no new notable feats within the past 2 years, and Yuta going above and beyond fighting Sukuna, showcasing his domain, and getting Gojo's body, Hakari kinda just got left in the dust. And I know the nature of this video sort of makes it sound like I'm downplaying Hakari or I don't think he's strong, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Hakari is still a top 10 or even a top 15 sorcerer. He gets way too much.
10. Can I name 10 characters stronger than Hakari Kinji? It depends on how you read his speed feats against Kashimo. Gojo, Sukuna, Yuta, Itadori. If I'm sticking with sorcerers, I can't include Maki and Toji. Ryu. If you're going with just sorcerers, if you're not going to overall character, maybe, yeah. It depends. Like you can slap Hakari off. You just can't slap him off to be Yuta level. I'll be honest. At this point, you can slap Hakari off to the moon, but not Yuta level. I'm sorry, Hakari fans. I really am, but not really. Cause I'm a Yuta yucker. I come off as a Yuta hater, but trust me, I'm a Yuta yucker. So I ain't really sorry. Your boy, come back to me when he has
Black
a bag.
for being held up by Harame while everyone else fights Sukuna. Harame is still a hand error sorcerer who is giving it their all and still hasn't taken Hakari down, despite Hakari not receiving any help from anyone else this entire time. Yuta just happens to not only be extremely broken, but just an extremely bad matchup for Hakari in general. So Yuta wins, and unfortunately, it's not really close.
I concur. Absolutely. Undeniably. I mean, yeah, and he brings up a fantastic point. The matchup hasn't gotten better, it's only gotten worse. Hakari's back has stayed the exact same since he was introduced. And arguably, it's gotten worse since he's been introduced. He lost any sort of range the moment he got jackpot. That's it. He's worthless in terms of his bag. And Yuta just kept getting new techniques. He kept getting buffs. He kept getting more durable. He got his domain expansion. There's nothing. And like I thought, he didn't even really bring up a single win con for Hakari because it doesn't exist. We didn't even go into the bulk argument, but it simply does not exist. In fact, I have a challenge for y'all. If you're all the way to the end of this video, thank you very much. I would appreciate it if you left the Blessed Gambler. Leave the Blessed Gambler in the comment section down below if you're all the way to the end of this video. But also, Hakari fan or not, please, do me a favor. Leave a single win con for Hakari if you can think of one. Or if you can improve that Hakari has better AP than Ryu, and thusly could damage Yuta with just his punches and kicks, so that's all he has. Do one of those two things. If you can, hats off to you. But I don't think you can. Not even because I can't. I'm very narrow-minded. I am obviously very clearly biased, so any Hakari fans out there, do it. I want to see it. I want to see you try. However, thank you so much for watching. The link to the original video will be in the description down below. Thank you to Six for a fantastic video. I left a like. I'm already subscribed. All good. But I'd like to thank you so much for watching. Please remember, I need to articulate better. Please remember to leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe. And make sure you hit that little notification bell so you don't miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do have to have a Patreon down below where you can support me for as low as $1 things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. You'll also now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Those perks include the live reaction to the very next chapter of Jujutsu Kaisen, ad-free variations of all my videos, and if you become a $25 patron or a $25 member, you can order whatever video you want. Also, I do have a link to my Ko-Fi in the description down below, where you can drop 5 beans for a short video, 20 beans for a long video, or any beans at all. Any support is always greatly appreciated. Now, I'd like to thank you so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is Zach with the Pencil, writing off. I'd like to thank you to our $3 members: Zena, Greyhound, Astro, Eternal Flame, NMA, Real Rare, G Prosper, Red Wolf 4765, and Paris Arnold. I'd like to leave another big ol' thank you to our $5 patrons: Sean, Sammy, Midnight Lord 21, Kevin Encarnacion, Josh Brown, and A+A. And I'd like to give a great big thank you to our $7 members: Autumn Mornings Lazo, Fine, and That Guy. And I'd like to give a great big thank you to our $10 members: Robbie Uchiha, Jay Warrior, and Akid's Void. And I'd like to give big, hefty, juicy thank yous to our $10 patrons: Panda Goat, Michael Williamson, Metal Solid Crisis, Joaquin Munoz, and Idem Okami. And I'd like to give the biggest, juiciest, meatiest, sloppiest, and heftiest thank you of them all to our $25 patron, Calvin Elder.